Here is the latest Higher Summits forecast brought to you by our friends at the Mount Washington Observatory.
Weather above treeline in the White Mountains is often wildly different than at our trailheads. Before you hike, check the Higher Summits forecast at mountwashington.org. Weather observers working at the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory write this elevation-based forecast every morning and afternoon. Search and rescue teams, avalanche experts, and backcountry guides all rely on the Higher Summits forecast to anticipate weather conditions above treeline. You should too. Go to mountwashington.org or text forecast to 603-356-2137. All right, and we are back. This is the forecast for Friday, July 14th and Saturday, July 15th. Unfortunately, it's another pattern that's going to be including rain, thunderstorms, and fog expected over the higher summits. And this is the big fundraiser for the Mount Washington Observatory this weekend, Seek the Peak. So fortunately, there looks like there will be some clearing Saturday morning, but the Higher Summits forecast is telling us to be ready for some wet conditions and the threat of thunderstorms. But hopefully it'll be a great weekend for everybody coming out for that great event. So, Friday, in the clear, trending towards mostly in the clouds under partly sunny skies. A chance of rain showers through the day and a slight chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon. High in the upper 50s with winds southwest at 20 to 35 miles per hour with gusts up to 45 miles per hour, decreasing to 15 to 30 miles per hour. Friday night, mostly in the clouds, trending towards clearing under partly cloudy skies. A chance of rain showers and thunderstorms in the evening. Lows in the 50s. Winds southwest at 15 to 30 miles per hour with gusts up to 40 miles per hour. And then Saturday, in the clear, trending towards mostly in the clouds under partly sunny skies with a chance of rain showers. A slight chance of thunderstorms in the afternoon. Again, highs in the upper 50s with winds southwest at 15 to 30 miles per hour in the morning and 25 to 40 miles per hour midday and 15 to 30 miles per hour later in the afternoon. Alrighty, have fun.
From the Woodpecker Studio in the great state of New Hampshire, welcome to the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast, where we discuss all things related to hiking and search and rescue in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. Here are your hosts, Mike and Stomp.
Oh, it's Stubby. He's back. Welcome back, Stubbs.
I'm back. We got a whole crew. How you doing, Davey?
How you doing?
Welcome.
Good. No problem. And then we got Steve. Steve from Reklis is back.
Full house.
Got a whole crowd here.
Pleasure as always.
Welcome to episode 113 of the Sounds Like a Search and Rescue podcast. This week we are back from vacation and joined by Davey Edwards of the Open Doors Outdoors organization. This is a great organization that serves veterans, their families, and young people by taking them into the outdoors for reconnection, healthy activity, and healing. Davey and his organization are hosting hikes in the White Mountains throughout the year, so we're going to talk to him about how you can get involved and support them if interested. We also have Steve from Reklis back for another round of visit. At this point, Steve has the honor of being our most frequent guest. So we'll have some beer updates, and he has been off backpacking a lot lately, so he can give us some recent trip reports. All this plus the Rainbow Family Gathering. Woman punches a beer. Lodge to Dodge is back. Stomp has a tech update. Recent hikes on Kearsarge North, Morgan and Percival and Peaked Mountains, and search and rescue is blowing up. We've got rescues on Gale River Trail, the Belknaps, Mount Jackson, Beaver Brook, and a variety of other stories to share with you. So SLASR's back from break. I'm Mike.
And I'm Stomp. Let's get started.
So Stomp, I wanted to ask you a question.
Yeah.
When you were out bushwhacking, I want to ask you a scenario on how you would handle this. So if you were out bushwhacking on your own and you stumbled across, if you were like nowhere near a trail and then you stumbled across a campsite that had like a tent sitting there and it looked like people had been around but there was no activity, would you snoop around? If like say the tent was zipped up, would you like snoop around and see what's going on?
No. And I think we've talked about a similar story when I was bushwhacking, but I would stay off well away just in case there was something going on in the tent, shenanigans or whatever. So you wouldn't even like check on the tent just to see like if anything weird was going on? Not in today's age, unfortunately.
Would you like just go around the edge and just be like, hello, hi, anybody there?
I wouldn't even do that. If I was bushwhacking, I would just circumvent. You would walk around.
Interesting. Well, the reason I ask is that there was a news story that you actually sent over. We didn't talk about it specifically, but 3 fairly mummified bodies were found near a remote Rocky Mountain campsite. So apparently somebody was out hiking in this remote area in Colorado, and a hiker basically stumbled upon this campsite, went into a tent and found, I guess he found the body that was located outside the tent and then reported it to authorities. Authorities went to the site and found 2 additional bodies zipped up inside the tent. So it looks like these might have been like, survivalists or something like that. They were mummified bodies that it indicated that they had been at this location for a while, maybe over a year. And there was like a lean-to that they had been building and all kinds of other stuff in this site. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah, totally. So let's flip it. So what would you do if you came across a dead body sitting in a chair in a tent?
Well, I always go with like for me, I would immediately stumble on that and I would be like, there's a dead body in here and I need to investigate.
Really?
So, yeah, I think so. I'm a busybody. So I would like poke around.
Oh man, I'd be like, get me out of here.
I would probably poke around and see what's going on. I'd probably yell and say like, is anybody there? And then I would look in the tent.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
Reasonable.
So, all right. Geez, you're a big wimp, Stomp. I thought you'd be braver than that.
I'm a complete wimp.
All right. Well, anyway, so I got big plans for the weekend, Stomp. Have you looked at the weather report? It looks like Saturday in the high summits is looking better based on the report.
Yes. Yeah. I'm going backpacking actually with my cousin. So that should be fun. We've been praying that it's going to be really nice. So I've been watching it like a hawk. It looks like it's clearing up. Maybe some thunderstorm activity in the afternoons, getting worse into Sunday. But I think we might be okay for an overnight. Why? What you got planned?
Presidential Traverse. So
nice.
We're locked in on Sunday. So that's not looking great right now, but we'll see.
Okay. No way to shift to Saturday?
Possibly. I got to talk to my sister-in-law and figure it out. But where are you camping?
Possible. We're camping up on the Grand Traverse somewhere.
Oh, okay.
So that's that stretch between Welch Dickey and Tecumseh. Yeah, we're going to be up there.
Excellent. Well,
yeah.
I'll call you if I get in trouble on the Traverse.
Okay. I'll have service. That's for sure.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I got another question for you. So this again talks about like sort of risk reward. So I had I did this thing when I was on vacation, Stomp, and I put my family at risk. So I was curious from your perspective, like how much risk reward are you willing to put your family in?
Geez, these days probably very little, to be honest with you.
Really?
If you can give me a nice casual hike within a little view, I'm happy. Beyond that, probably not much more. You could probably twist my arm, make me go ziplining or something, but that's about it.
Yeah. Well, while I was away, I had this and I ask you, you guys can give your opinion on this, and Davey and Steven, you can jump in on this. So I was on vacation down in the Caribbean on this island. It's generally a pretty safe island, but like there's this section of the island in the southeast portion where you have to drive out in like a Jeep. You basically can only get out there in a Jeep. It's like a dirt road. It's really like probably about 8 miles away from anything that's related to civilization. And it's known as like Split Rock. And you go out there and it's like this like basically beautiful deserted beach area. But the problem with this place is that every once in a while, like tourists will go out there and locals will set up basically like a robbery situation where they'll, the tourists will go, you park your Jeep at the end of this road and then you go out onto this beach and you just hang out and swim, and you can literally walk out in probably about a half a mile before you even get up to your shoulders. So I was reading about this and I was trying to think about like, what can we do that's an epic day for the family? But the problem is I read about these robberies that can happen. And I was kind of like, do I do this or do I not do this? Do I tell my family about the risk or do I not tell them about the risk? So me being who I am, I decided, I was like, you know what, we're just going to go for it. And then if somebody robs us, like I can fight the robbers off and tell the kids and my wife to like run away. And I'll just like I'll take on the robbers all by myself. So we ended up going out to this place and it's literally like the most gorgeous beach that you could ever imagine. Now, I didn't tell my wife or my kids about the risk. I just said like, we're going to do this nice excursion. And we go out there. So sure enough, we go down this road. It's like 8 miles long, get to the end of this dirt road. Like the road doesn't even end. The road just ends in this cliff. And I'll send you some pictures, Stomp. And then basically you're just overlooking this beautiful little beach. You walk down these steps of rock and you're in this beach area that is like maybe like a mile wide beach that you can just swim in or whatever. So we're exploring like the whole time. My neck is on a swivel. I'm like looking for the robbers, and my kids and my wife are completely oblivious. They don't know any of the risk or all that. So they ended up like exploring all over the beach or whatever. And then I'm spending the whole time basically looking out for robbers that I'm going to have to fight off. But it turned out that there were no robbers, luckily. But it was a funny trip because I was like super paranoid the whole time, and my kids and my wife had like the greatest time ever.
Great. Nice story. I thought you were going to take us to the boat where you did that gainer.
No, that was a whole different, there was like an abandoned boat there too that we could jump off of. But I don't know if on reflection, I feel like maybe it wasn't a good call and I'm not a good dad and not a good husband, but I don't know. Davey, you look like you're a guy that's been in some tough spots. What do you think?
Yeah, I would probably pass on that as well. Unless I had someone there with me, but just me, me against 3 or 4 guys, I probably would just throw the keys and run.
Yeah. It's crazy. They had some stories where essentially, like, I think the last people that got robbed were out there with like their 2 little kids, and they take everything. They took the rental car, they took all of their jewelry, all their money, everything, and just literally left them for an 8-mile walk down a dirt road in 90-degree weather.
It sounds to me like even if you get lucky and don't get robbed, like happened to you, you might not enjoy yourself as much.
True.
You said you were stressed out the whole time. Really glad you made it back from the robbery beach.
Yeah, I know. It was called Pirates Cove, or they called it Split Rock or whatever.
Well named.
Yeah, that was
well named.
It was a fun trip, but it was that little piece of the trip was a little stressful. But anyway, now hopefully my wife won't listen to this, and she's never going to trust me again.
Wow, risky.
Yeah, yeah. That's it. Other things from vacation that I learned is now that my kids are getting older, I had this vision that they want to go jet skiing or whatever. They would be like, oh, I make my own money now. I can pay for some of this stuff on my own. Dad, you get a break. Like my kids have that doesn't even cross their mind. If they want to do something, it's like, Dad, you're paying for everything.
It's natural, huh?
So I guess it just doesn't end.
Too funny.
Yeah. Next up on this Stomp, I think moving on, we wanted to talk about the Rainbow family. Did you end up going to the the gathering?
I actually joined. I'm part of the whole crew. Oh. Steve,
you had me for a sec.
Yes, I'm part of the Rainbow family now. So I've got my uniform and my chakra stones, and I'm ready to go. No, I really haven't heard much. Is there an update?
I don't think there's an update. I think there's a couple of things that happened. So I didn't end up going either. The day that I was thinking about potentially going up there when I got back, it was just raining and miserable. Mm-hmm. What I've read is that they ended up setting up like a federal court, like a temporary courthouse up there. And they were essentially grabbing every single car that drove in, and they were, honestly, like half these people, like they don't have car registrations, inspection stickers, all this stuff. So they had a lot of probable cause to pull people over. And as they were pulling people over, they were inspecting their cars, and they ended up, I think, getting a lot of people on different violations, and they would just ship them right off to, I think the federal courthouse they had set up was in Berlin. So there's a lot of people getting pulled over and taken into custody. I did see a video of somebody driving down the road, and it was about 1.5 miles of just cars parked on the side of the road in muddy miserableness. So I think it was really a lot quieter than people expected.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it is federal land. So that's a nice workaround to make sure that everything stays peaceful.
Yeah, but I guess the hardest of the hardcore sort of holdouts from, those hippie days are still around, which I didn't realize they were at that volume.
No comment on that. And by the way, I was just kidding about the Rainbow family. Just to clarify.
Just in case anyone listens. All right, you want to talk about beers? Not the kind you drink, but the kind that have claws.
Oh, this is a neat story. Yeah, this is a cool one. Yeah.
So you had pulled this one here. So this is a woman was bitten by a bear near the Maine-New Hampshire border. Mm-hmm. She apparently went into North Conway. She was hospitalized. She's got a good story here. So
this is a great story.
Yeah, so she was bitten by a bear Friday morning right across the border in Porter, Maine, which is over not by where my father-in-law lives. Lynn Kelly said she was in her backyard around 11:30 a.m. when she heard a dog barking. She went to investigate. If that was Stomp, he would have ran away, given what we've learned about him this evening. She said the dog was being chased by a black bear. She noticed that the dog ran off the deck and straight down to the front of the house. Next thing she knew, she heard the dog squealing, and like a good dog mom, she ran over to where the dog had gone down and kept calling him. And finally, the dog came running back. Right behind it was a bear. The bear looked at her, and she looked at the bear, and they scared each other. She said that she tried to look big and yell and scare the bear, but it didn't work. It kept coming towards her, so she punched it. We don't know if she gave it a jab or a hook or what the deal is, but as she punched it, the bear bit her hand and wrist.
That's all right. She still did the right thing. This is my hypothesis. Yeah. Punch him in the snout, and you should be okay. I'm assuming she's not a trained boxer, so she did the right thing nonetheless.
So Stomp. So now we're learning about. So Stomp has no problem punching a bear, but he will not yell out to an empty campsite.
Right, exactly.
Or take his family to a pirate beach.
Well, yeah.
I mean,
See the difference? there's humans involved, or a dead human anyway.
Right. If my dogs are in danger, I'm afraid of bears, but I'll punch a bear for my dog.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think you're going to have much of a choice if a bear comes jumping on you. It has, in this case, it kept coming towards her.
True. All right. Well, in the same thread of the story about the woman that got bitten or that punched the bear and got bitten, there's a new study that came out that finds surprising data about North American black bear attacks on humans. So a group of scientists out of Canada, and then I think there was some in Massachusetts as well, they've collected, much like we collect search and rescue media reported events, they have collected for fatal bear attacks over the last 110 years up to 2009. So there's been 59 fatal encounters with North American black bears in the last 110 years. So 60 people or so, I think 62 people total had been killed.
That's not many.
92% of the fatal attacks were by single male black bears. So you know how we always say, like, oh, you never want to like approach a mother with cubs? That's actually
it's not the case.
It's not the case. It's almost never a mother. You know, it's this idea that, oh, you get between the cubs and their mother. It actually never happens. It's almost always single male black bears that are stalking prey. So if you see a bear that's basically...
That's because everybody's walking in front of a male bear. Because everybody's told.
Yeah, no one knows it's dangerous.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. But apparently, like, if they display defensive behavior, like, you know how they do those like fake chargers and they make a lot of noise, typically that means that the bear is not going to attack you. It's really situations where the bear's being quiet or they're just sort of coming out of nowhere where you're going to be in big trouble.
God, that's funny.
The study found no examples of attacks on people that were hiking in groups or were in groups. It was almost always attacks where it was one or two people.
Makes sense.
So if you have no friends and you're going out there hiking, like, you've been in trouble.
Yeah, that goes to the largest, looking big, looking large.
Yep. Yeah. They said that in Canada and Alaska, there's 3.5 times more attacks per capita, despite the size of the bear populations not being much larger than in other areas. They theorize that because they're larger territories, that it's typical that bears might experience more food distress than they otherwise would, because I guess they basically just run out of food in their local area, and then they'll attack. So what we've learned here is essentially, like, if you're hiking solo or with just one other person, it's a little bit more risky. If you are finding yourself near a male black bear in their territory, then that's typically where you're going to get in more trouble. The study does emphasize that there's like over 1 million interactions between humans and bears over the course of like this time period. So the chance of you actually getting killed by a bear is pretty slim.
That's really interesting. Not what I expected.
Yep. So next time somebody says like, oh, you got to watch out for mothers with their cubs, Stomp, you can say, actually, it's not the case.
Best approach, find a black male bear and hang out with them and you'll be fine.
True.
No problem.
True.
They'll protect you.
True. All right. So, Stomp, you got to do this next one. Northern Alpine Start submitted info on lightning. So you went rogue on us and did your solo show, which was great because I needed something to listen to while I was flying home, which was fantastic. But what's going on with this app?
Well, yeah, he sent this in, and he's a guide and said that he uses this all the time, and it's an app that is available for, I believe, for Android and Apple, but it sends you push notifications regarding lightning strikes in your area. So you can program it to go off depending on your location. And the description here is, it's the best app for monitoring lightning strikes all around the world and close to real time. modern design. You can watch thunderstorms and receive notifications. So that's really cool. So thank you for that submission and that information. We will provide the link in the show notes. Pretty cool, though.
Excellent. Yeah, that is pretty cool. Yeah. And what is not cool is that tourists are still doing dumb things in Yellowstone.
No surprise.
So Stomp pulled this article here, and so Stomp, you pulled this, but apparently somebody drove. Here we go. So there's this Facebook page called Yellowstone Invasion of the Idiots. We gotta find this. I need to get this person on the show. It's a popular Facebook page documenting tourists doing dumb things in Yellowstone. But apparently the administrator of this page saw something on Sunday that even made her surprised. A tourist who left the road and drove her vehicle onto the beach of Yellowstone Lake, where they immediately became stuck. So apparently this is a whole new level of stupid. It's against the law to be in there. And apparently the lady just, I guess, went off course and got lost.
How do you do that? How does that even happen?
Stomp, you pulled that article. Do you have anything you want to say about it? I don't know.
Well, I clearly think that there is a new level of stupidity out there. I'm not sure how you do that. I really don't. I mean, I don't know either. Clearly signage and barriers and everything else, but I don't know. Who knows?
I'm not sure.
It's crazy.
Well, not only is there a new level of stupidity, there's also a new Lodge to Dodge finisher. So for people that aren't familiar with Lodge to Dodge, Stomp put together his own unique route across the White Mountains, which goes from the Lodge on Mount Musalake to across all of the AMC huts and finishes at the Joe Dodge Lodge. So it's basically like an extended hut to hut. And even at this point right now, people are now referencing Lodge to Dodge as Stomp's Lodge to Dodge route on social media. So it's really taken off. And Michael Connolly on July 8th completed this route.
Yeah, congratulations, Michael. He had a lot of support. Larson was out there. They did the portion of the presidentials together. And as you know, the weather's pretty wild last weekend. But yeah, it is catching on. I don't know the time exactly, but I don't think it was sub 24 hours because of the heat and everything else. But yeah, it's starting to catch on. Lodge to Dodge.
Did you go to meet him at the end? I feel like it's not a Lodge to Dodge unless you were there to meet. You were
with the pom-poms.
Yeah, I feel like that's like the very end with the pom-poms. You know how like who's the guy, the hiker Ed, that meets all the like grid finishers?
Hiker.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Really? No.
Steve, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like when you finish the grid, hiker Ed.
No, I haven't heard of this.
Huh? Oh, he's the legend though. He's done it a million times.
Yeah. He's like in charge of like the grid. And then when you finish the grid, I think he goes, the big thing is like he'll go and be there at the end. So you should be that guy for Lodge to Dodge Stomp.
Oh, that's cool. I'll have to think about that. Two things about that. Larson did direct Michael to Joe Dodge Lodge to touch the lodge itself. So that's part of the tradition. You have to finish on that. But the route goes up to Carter Notch Hut and then up and over the Wildcats and then back to Joe Dodge Lodge. So I think it clocks in at 77 miles, if I remember correctly. And what else on that? Oh, yeah. And then I think Sarita, Larson's spouse, suggested that I give the Lodge to Dodge a try.
You totally should.
When I heard her say, when I saw her write that, I'm like, oh my God, I would never be able to do that. And then, they suggested, how about tenting it or doing it in that manner? And I said, well, we'll see. And then that whole night, I couldn't get it out of my head. I really couldn't.
Well, yeah. Is that part of the rules? Does it have to be done without sleeping?
No, but it should be a one torture nonstop attempt. It should be the same ethos as like a hut to hut.
Okay.
But, you can take a quick nap on the way. I think I could pull that off. If I were to do it, I would do it unsupported though. I would pack everything in my pack. If it takes me 2 or 3 days, boom, I'm good. Sleep on the ground for 20 minutes, get up, go again. That's how I would do it.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know. I'm contemplating it.
I think you should do it.
I'm trying to get in better shape, so maybe I can. Who knows? Maybe in the fall.
Now, wait a minute. With this course, so explain this to me again, the Carter Hut thing. So you
Sure.
get out to Carter Hut, and then do you climb back up Wildcat and then go down Wildcat Ridge to get to Joe Dodge? Is that like the final?
Correct. So you go up 19 Mile Brook. Once you dump out of Osgood Trail and the Great Gulf, go to Carter Notch Hut, and then you have to ascend the Wildcats, up and over all the Wildcats, back down to basically the Glen Boulder point, and then walk.
So you got to go down Wildcat Ridge then.
Correct. And
Okay,
then
that's tough.
And then you take that a trail adjacent to Route 16 back to Joe Dodge.
That little cutoff that takes you by that little pond there.
Yeah. And at the beginning, it's the Asquam Ridge back to Ravine Lodge if you were doing it backwards. So that would be a Dodge to Lodge, which Steve Mason did the year after, or a few months after. I forget exactly, but yeah, pretty brutal course.
Excellent, Stomp.
Yeah.
So keep the listeners updated on whether you decide to do that or not. Davey, that might be a new route for you and your crew.
Go for it. There's a fastest known time post up there and everything, so it exists in the system. So check it out.
No, sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, Stomp. So Stomp's all excited. He found a new technology. He was texting me during the week, and he was like, this is going to be a game changer. So I spent about a minute looking at this, Stomp, so you're going to have to carry this piece of it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So basically, you have all these new technologies, and Garmin is using communication in their devices now. So you can get a GPS, you can get a watch, whatever. Motorola has a new device called a Defy, and it's essentially a hotspot. It's a satellite hotspot that you use with your cell phone. So the big thing about it that I noticed was that the subscription plans are a lot cheaper than what Garmin and all these other, companies are charging for you to use their GPS communication methods. So the Motorola Defy, it's selling for $149, and that includes free messaging and satellite-enabled SOS. And again, the plan starts with a low of $499 a month, which is pretty cheap. If you compare Spot, the Spot Trace is $99 initially to purchase it, with plans ranging from $9 to $14. And then there's the InReach brand, which ranges, these are really expensive, like $299 to $400, and you're looking at a subscription of $14.95. So again, it's a little teeny hotspot. It's like a keychain, 2 inches by an inch, and you use it in conjunction with your cell phone. So you're typing messages on your cell phone, and it's a link to the satellites. So what do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think it could be pretty useful.
That sounds like the winner. I mean, because that's a piece of equipment that I carry with me anyways, is my cell phone.
And it works quite a bit.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I know how pathetic some of the handhelds are and everything else. I mean, satellite's the way to go.
Right.
But for somebody that's, say, not so much an advanced backcountry or expert hiker, it could be a great option.
Yeah, we used something similar to this. It wasn't a Motorola, but it was some similar product that my friend Tom used. And essentially, it's basically connects to a satellite, and then you can text through your phone. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's this cheap though. So basically, this Motorola Defy is $149, and then there's a entry level plan which is $4.99 per month. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty cheap. So it's almost like it's so cheap that it's just worth trying anyway.
Absolutely. So we just want to let you guys know it's out there. So do some research and check it out.
Yeah. And speaking of the Garmin stuff, we got a shout out by Taylor, the New Hampshire hiker, who is a pretty well-known YouTube hiker. So she has done the Appalachian Trail. I think she did it the year COVID kicked in. She had to get off trail. Then she did it last year. And now she's on trail. She was on trail, and she was up in Maine, and she had to come off trail. She had So thanks for the shout out, by the way, Taylor. We'll definitely get you on the show soon. We'll reach out, and I think it'll be fun to talk to you. But she had a problem with, first of all, she was up in Maine like during this crazy rain that happened right before the 4th of July. So she had to eventually get off trail, but she had a Garmin InReach that actually triggered an SOS, and she was like, I don't even know if I touched this button or anything. She had the thing like 2 years before, and it had gotten covered with like bug spray or DEET, and she was like, I don't even think this thing works. She went to go like turn it back on before her through hike, and it was working. So she's like, all right, I'll just reuse it. And so she thinks that maybe it was messed up because of the bug spray incident a couple of years ago, but she, it triggered an SOS, and she got a call from Garmin, and she was saying like, it was raining out. It was crazy. She thought it was like a telemarketer. So she just hung up on the guy. So they were initiating a search for her. But I thought that was interesting that, sometimes the Garmins have weird things that happen to them. And she says it's not Garmin's fault. She's like, I beat the hell out of the thing. But it is interesting that this technology stuff, it's good, but it also is not 100% reliable.
Yeah, agreed.
Very good. And then speaking of the Appalachian Trail Stomp, the Appalachian Trail Conservatory put out a high water alert update. And this basically has all of the information around high water in Maine, Vermont, in New York. So there's an alert about Bear Mountain in New York that was impassable. There's like probably 5 or 6 crossings of the AT in Vermont that are impassable. And then there's a number of high water spots in Maine as well that are not passable.
Yeah, and this weekend it may get worse. There's more rain coming. A couple inches in total. Incredible.
Yeah, and the ground is so saturated right now that it's a big issue, because it's even an inch of rain or 2 inches of rain is going to cause a lot of flooding out there.
Absolutely. I'm shocked by all the landslide activity, the flooding. It's like, oh man.
Cats and dogs. It's raining outside, Stomp.
Mm-hmm.
Next up, I got a little alert here on Cardigan Mountain. There is an alert by the Forest Service that was sent out that says Cardigan Mountain Trail and summit access will be limited periodically by fire tower replacement project from July 17th to August 31st. So if you're going up on Cardigan Mountain, there's a lot of trails up there that will remain available, but the public, may be routed away from certain areas. You may not be able to get over by the summit and the fire tower because they are replacing it. So this fire tower was built in 1903, and they are, maybe actually I'm reading this wrong. The first fire tower in New Hampshire was built in 1903. They've got 15 active towers, and I guess they're going to be replacing or updating this one on Cardigan Mountain, and then the next one they're going to be working on is Belknaps Mountain, which will begin later this summer. So a lot of activity going on there.
Okay, good to know.
So, and then before we get into housekeeping and sponsors, one last bit of news here. Mick Foley, who was the known as Mankind or Cactus Jack WWE 3-time world champion, he frequently takes vacations in New Hampshire. He actually was able to work as the Wolfman at Clark's Trading Post a couple of weeks ago. His son works there as an amusement park ride operator, and Mick was nice enough to join for a day of being the Wolfman.
That's an interesting story.
Damn, bummer I missed that.
No kidding.
He's actually perfect for the Wolfman. He fits in perfectly for that role.
Super cool.
And he also went up to, I guess he's an amusement park fan, so he went up to Santa's Village, gave that a lot of good feedback, and I guess he vacations in New Hampshire every summer, and his kid lives up here apparently over the summer.
Seek to Peak returns this summer with the classic Mount Washington Hike-a-thon. This annual gathering of New Hampshire's hiking community is the nonprofit Mount Washington Observatory's largest annual fundraiser. Hikers raise funds, earn gear, and celebrate at our après hike party on Saturday, July 15th, with live music, food trucks, epic gear, raffle, beer garden, vendors, and people who care deeply about the trails and an inclusive hiking community. It all takes place at the base of the Mount Washington Auto Road. Our Hike and Make Friends option supports all ability levels, pairing hikers with similar goals for a trek that's right for you. All hikers are welcome to help raise funds for the observatory's summit weather station and services like the twice-a-day Higher Summits forecast, educational programs, and research in the White Mountains. Seek the Peak is sponsored by Great Glen Trails and Eastern Mountain Sports. Learn more and register to hike at seekthepeak.org. And it's this weekend. So, you guys already heard the forecast, but they just suggest get ready for a little bit of rain and maybe thunderstorms in the afternoon. But it looks like you guys will be fine for the most part. Just a reminder, you can get your free SLASR stickers at Ski Fanatics off of exit 28 on 93. And be sure to stop by Spinners in Andover off of Dascombe Road. And a quick shout out to EMS, who we haven't plugged in a little bit. Your Northeast go-to for outdoor gear, guidance, education, and more since 1967. Check them out at ems.com. And we have Steven here from at Reklis Brewery, where you'll enjoy the best food, craft beer, and fun just 15 minutes from Franconia Notch, many 4,000 footers, and less than 10 minutes from the Five Corners. We do have a couple coffee donations here. James Landoli donated 4, and he said, "Scamp." That was from the Stomp Goes Rogue episode. It's like, am I a scamp or what? So he claims I'm a scamp. So there we go. And then Jarrett donated 5 coffees. So thank you guys very much. We really appreciate it.
Excellent, Stomp. And then we still got window clings available. I think I got to ship out 2 orders tomorrow. And then I've been using those window clings and my windows have not gotten smashed. So for anyone that's not familiar, we sell these and there's a link in the show notes. We sell these sticker / they're like clings that you can peel on and peel off your window, and you just stick them on there when you're hiking, and it just says my car's unlocked, don't smash my window. And it's got a little bit of SLASR marketing on it. So I used those a couple of times already, and my windows have not gotten smashed.
Anti-smasher device by SLASR.
Hey, you can brag 100% success rate so far.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. They're perfect.
Yeah.
So,
as far as we know.
Exactly. So this is the part of the show where we talk about what beer we're drinking. I am back to drinking beer. I drank a lot of rum punch and margaritas when I was in the islands, and I think I probably put on about 10 pounds from Mount Washington at this point. So sorry.
There you go. It's all good.
Yeah. You drinking anything good, Stomp?
Oh, well, yeah, Steve, why don't you describe this one? We're both sharing this one tonight.
Yeah.
At the moment.
I brought down some Sonny and Cher. It's one of our IPAs, one that we especially like to brew in the summer because we brew it a little bit lighter. We kind of mix the base malt with something that's a little bit lighter, and we hop it so it's a little more floral, less aggressively fruity. Great summer sipper, and we've all been enjoying it all summer long.
It's delicious.
Yeah, and it's on tap. It's in cans.
Well, I'll have to check it out. We may be going to Reklis after my presidential traverse. We'll see.
Yeah, you'll earn it.
Definitely. I'm drinking an Allagash White. It's horrendous. I hate it. Davey, what are you drinking?
I have a
Moving on.
orange polar seltzer.
Oh, very good. Very good.
Sorry to be so boring.
Good on you.
Keep it. Nope, that's fine. Whatever you want to drink is fine by us. No problem. That sounds a lot better than this Allagash. Stephen, do you guys make what is Allagash? Is it a type of beer, or is it just a brewery that's called Allagash? What is it?
Yeah, Allagash is the brewery, and the one that you're drinking is their wheat beer, I think.
Yes.
And yeah, it kind of has a lot of those Belgian-y flavors, maybe some of those spicy stuff. Is that maybe not what you're interested in?
Yeah, it just feels bitter, but not in a good way.
Okay.
Such an enjoyable experience.
I apologize to the listeners. I want to find joy in my beer, but this has been sitting in the fridge for like months.
Okay,
so maybe
that helps too.
The problem.
I think that's one of those beers that people drink with an orange slice. Try that. Maybe you'll like it better.
All right, I'll take that. I'll take that into advisement. So, all right, recent hike Stomp. I did, despite my world travels, I have been out hiking a little bit. But why don't you start? Have you gone anywhere good?
I attempted to get up Peaked Hill. That is a White Mountain National Forest trail up here in Thornton, and it's a beautiful, I think, 2-mile hike up to a view with a pond, and there are these 2 peaks that is situated sort of northwest from the pond. It's just really beautiful. And my idea was to try to bushwhack up to those 2 peaks. Modest bushwhack. I think it's like a mile long. And I gave it a shot, but I bonked because the bugs were the worst I've ever seen. And that was about 2 weeks ago, probably. It was just awful. So I bailed. I'm like, nah, I'm going to wait a little bit, because the whole surrounding area, past the pond itself, is just all bog. So it was really rough. Try it again some other time. Beyond that, I've just been running still. I didn't give up. I'm cranking out the running, doing the hills.
Training for Mount Washington again next year.
Or something. Yeah, we'll see.
Something. Very good. Well, I've done 2 hikes since I've been back. So I hiked Kearsarge North around the July 4th holiday season. So I came back from New York. We flew into New York. I came back, and then we went right up to Maine. And it was raining the whole time. There was like a whole crew of people. My brother-in-law's girlfriend's family was in town. I went to high school with a bunch of these people, so it's sort of reconnecting with some folks. So they were going hiking. I ended up going hiking with the Pike family of Ohio, which formerly of North Reading. So we went up to Kearsarge North, which for those of you that are not familiar, is off of Hurricane Mountain Road, near North Conway, Cranmore area. It's a 6.2 mile hike with a fire tower on top. And typically it's a place where you can see some unbelievable views out to Mount Washington. You can get some undercast. We had nothing but clouds, basically. A little bit of a view down below, but for the most part, it was just cloudy. But Stomp, I had an interesting thing happen to me there.
Okay.
Am I bothering you? I apologize if I'm distracting you.
No, you know what's distracting me? Xylo, our new kitten, is hanging out with Steve, and he's just so chill and having a great time hanging out with our guest.
I'm a big Xylo fan. I mean, you guys are cool, but I'm here for Xylo now.
Yeah. So if he's just sitting there, how is he distracting you?
Because he's just so adorable. You just have to keep on looking.
I feel like that's a cover for you're up to something else. I don't know what you do. You're looking on your phone doing something.
I'm just preparing for the next segment. That's all.
All right.
We have 10,000 notable hikes. Just so you know.
Focus.
Okay.
All right. So, but I have a good story. So, Stephen, I'm going to talk to you, and Davey, I'll talk to you. So, I had an incident that happened on Kearsarge North that has happened to me before. And what happened is that we ran into a guy at about, I think Kearsarge North is like 3,200 feet, maybe 3,300 feet. We ran into a guy at about 2,000 feet, maybe 2,200 feet. He was hanging out with his family. So it was like him and his wife and 2 kids. And I was, hi, how you doing on trail? He's like, oh, doing good. And he's like, I'm having a little problem with my boots. And he said his sole was tearing off his boots. And I knew immediately, I've dealt with this before, where I was hiking down Tuckerman one time. We got up the Hermit Lake. We were just below Hermit Lake. We ran into a young lady, and her boots had fallen apart. She got left by her friends. So we had to basically give her our sneakers to wear, and we would like barefoot down. We would switch off, me and my friend Tom. And what happens in these cases, and people need to be aware of this, is that a lot of people that don't hike often, they'll leave their hiking boots or their whatever their gear is, they'll leave them in their closet for like 2-3 years, right? Then they get out hiking, everything seems fine, and what happens is that their boots end up dry rotten. So they fall apart, like the sewing and the glue on the leather just falls apart. So this guy was at like 2,200 feet or so. And he's like, yeah, I'm having some issue with my boot. So I said to him, I was like, look, I got duct tape, I've got zip ties. Do you want me to do a little field surgery? And he was like, no, I'm good. So I don't know. Have you guys ever run into this before with people having their shoes falling apart?
Absolutely.
No,
yeah, I'm the same as you. I'll do my only fix is duct tape. I keep it wrapped around my hiking poles, and but yeah, it's pretty scary what you see out there. Sometimes you see people in flip flops on Franconia Ridge, and you're kind of thinking there might be a bigger problem than their footwear going on.
Yeah, exactly. So I just said, like, look, I can, and he said, no, I think I'm good. I'm just going to make my way slowly. It's not that bad. So then we get up to the trail split, and matter of fact, I saw there was 2 Forest Service people there, and I even said to them, I was like, there's some guy down there that's got some issues with his boots, but he's probably heading back down by now. And, we were just talking about some other stuff. Then we went on our way. As we're coming down, we see the wife and the 2 kids are right below the summit. The wife is like, hey, you're the guy that had the duct tape. My husband's at 2,100 feet. If you want to give him a hand, he'll probably be able to take the duct tape, because it turned out as I got down there, he was actually at 2,400 feet. He was sitting on a rock, and both of his boots had fallen apart. So I was able to, give him some duct tape, give him some zip ties, and then I kind of wanted to say to him, I was like, dude, you should probably start heading down, because it's getting to be like 1:30, 2 o'clock. It's going to take you 3-4 hours to get down. Like, it could take you longer. If you start heading down, your wife and kids will meet up with you. But he was a pretty experienced hiker. He said he'd done some sections of the AT and stuff, so I guess he's okay. But it's just a warning to anybody, like, especially if you're going hiking if you're a hiker and you're taking somebody with you that hasn't hiked for a long time, just double check with them and be like, hey, if you're bringing old boots, like, that's a huge red flag, because I think that this dry rotting thing, this is the second time I've seen this happen, and I think that it probably happens more than people realize. So have your duct tape with you, have your zip ties with you, and then especially if you're going with someone that doesn't hike a lot and they've got old boots, like, I would flag that immediately as a problem.
Yeah, we should research that.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I was just talking to somebody the other day, I think it was yesterday at that picnic there. There is that issue with sodium chloride up here in New Hampshire. If you use beeswax on your boots, the wax collects the sodium chloride and can dissolve your leather and destroy your waterproofing. So that could be a factor as well. That can hasten that type of situation, even if it's not sitting in your closet for a while.
Yeah, to me, it's just one more reason to just go with trail runners in the summer or in the warm weather. But anyway, and then the other hike I did, me and my daughter were going to do like a 4,000 footer. It looked crappy out on like last Saturday or Sunday, and we ended up doing Morgan Percival. That was pretty mellow, no views. We did see like one dog that was like by the caves in Percival that was like not going in those caves. Sorry, Dad. And Mom and Dad were trying to get the dog through, and then finally I like showed him like there's a bypass that you can go around. So crisis averted, but the dog was like having nothing to do with the caves.
Yeah, pretty sketchy. My favorite hike.
That's your favorite hike?
Yeah, those ladders. Remember that story? Like,
yeah.
hell,
Oh, yeah.
I need to get down these ladders. Carry me.
Huge ladders. I know my daughter did it better than you did, honestly.
I bet. Oh, boy.
All right, Stomp. So notable listener hikes of the week.
Yes. If you tag SLASR in your post on Instagram, you can be considered for SLASR's notable hike of the week. And we have a whole bunch. We get a little constipated this week. So here we go. Ready? You guys can decide the winners. So I'm just going to rattle them off. So we have Mountain Ginger. Did a solo on Maine's Cutler Coast Trail near the Canadian border. And I got to say, her pictures are absolutely amazing. Looks like a beautiful, beautiful place. Coffee and Vinyl, Black Mountain. And it's really neat. I was just recently researching again that Sugarloaf next to Black Mountain for a revisit. We should talk about that, Mike, because that's a really neat little mountain there next to it. But moving on, we have Cindy Hessian. Did Black Cap, Jakester, Tecumseh, Waterville to Tripoli Road. Then we have Sue Marley tagged us, and she also did the Morgan Percival Loop in bugs and smog. Doesn't it sound?
She might have gone the same day I did then.
You know, it's very possible. Bugs and smog. That sounds so fun. A hunting
that
hippie.
Could be anywhere in the Whites for the last couple of weeks.
Yes. Hunting hippie did Wildcat, Thunder. And the picture that he posted, actually, just for anybody that's curious, is there's in the corner, you can see the little teeny weeny shed that Mrs. Stomp and I hid in during the thunderstorm, Mike, that you sent a text and we were on Wildcat Ridge, that whole story. So you can see the little shed that we sheltered in for that massive storm that came through. Dave Shits in the Woods did Zealand, Thoreau Falls, and Shoal Pond, Willie Field. Nice job. Snow 13 Angel tackled the Tri-Pyramid Loop via Pine Bend and down Saturday Falls. Cello Mellow, here's an out-of-state adventure that was tagged for us. The Grand Canyon Traverse. Holy moly, check this out. So 26 miles, 119 degrees, and they got pulled into a rescue apparently and had to help out a rescue. Yeah. That's hardcore, huh?
In 119.
Yeah, that's winning. That's notable hike of the week. Winner.
And we're only halfway through. So, So RPM CC86 saw a moose and hiked moose via Beaver Brook. Pretty cool. Long Brown Path did finish the 48 on Madison. Congratulations. That's super cool.
Hooray.
Jakester again tackled Garfield for 31 out of 48 of the 4,000 footers. Kitty Hiker did Kinsman's and had a potential Stomp sighting. Oh, wow. Liz Fay, Skookumchuck to Lafayette to Greenleaf. Kinesthetically a werewolf. That's a nice one, huh? A 3-day Prezi. And lots of listeners had on trail, huh? Can you believe that? She's saying that, or they are saying that they had a lot of conversation with people that listen to the podcast. So that's really neat. Nice work there. A couple more. EC Banks hikes. Galehead, Twins, Garfield in sweltering temps. Nice work. Oh, here's some guy I've never met before. Reklis Steven. He tackled 4 main 4,000 footers, including... Do you want to tell us about it?
Oh, yeah. 6, I think it was, actually.
Okay.
Over 2 days. Yeah. We started on day 1 was Abraham, Spalding, and Sugarbush. Or Sugarloaf, sorry. Then the next day, South Crocker, Reddington, Crocker, and then out. Or is that the wrong week?
No, I think that's the right one. So you got Abraham, Spalding, Springer, Reddington, South Crocker, and Crocker. So how long were you out there for?
We did overnight.
Okay.
Yeah, so 2 full days of hiking. Yeah, and it was just after all that crazy rain, so the water was high, humid, hot.
Bugs?
Buggy, yeah. We were expecting lightning both days, but it held out. It was like a miracle.
Yeah, no kidding.
Christmas in July.
Good time?
Oh, it was fantastic. It was a great time. Yeah, backpacking season is my favorite, so I'm taking advantage.
So that part of the world, low traffic on trail?
Oh, yeah, it is nothing like the Whites. Yeah, we saw, one day we saw 10 people, and that was the first day we were out there, and that's pretty much it.
That's fantastic. Well, unfortunately, guests can't get notable hiker of the week.
Oh, that's totally fine. I think we all know who wins this week.
Yeah. Last 2 here. A Folsom 33 Baldface Loop in extreme heat, but cooled off at Emerald Pool. That's a good call. Emerald Pool is such a great spot if you're doing the ball faces.
Oh, yeah. The best.
And finally, Liz Fay did a northern Prezi with a spur down Lowe's Path and got to check out Grey Knob Cabin, Crag Camp, and I just reposted one of her pictures looking back up towards, I believe, Adams and Madison in the upper loop of the King Ravine. So nice work, everybody. But yeah, you're right. That's the winner, that traverse there, right? Is that the consensus?
In the Grand Canyon.
And that's 18 notable hike Stomp.
Yeah, they add up quick. But yeah, hey, people are tagging us, and it's nice. It's a nice quid pro quo, spread the word about the podcast and get a little plug.
Yes, exactly. All right.
What the hell was that?
Daphne just knocked over a couple books.
No surprise. Nice work, Daphne.
I'm like the cat man over here.
The cat
Attack of the cats here. All right. Focus. We got sponsors here. Focus.
Oh, you threw me off with that. All right, let's see. Alzheimer's Association. Hike to Fight Alzheimer's with 48 Peaks, a fundraising and awareness event for the Alzheimer's Association. Hike one of New Hampshire's 4,000 footers or create your own adventure. Consider joining us this summer or during the fall foliage season. Together, we will paint the mountains purple and raise vital funding to advance the care, support, and research efforts of the Alzheimer's Association. Our hope is that one day, Alzheimer's will be nothing but a memory. So learn more at alts.org/48 peaks.
It's time for Slasher's Guest of the Week. Very cool. Very cool. Very cool.
We are joined by our friend Davey Edwards, who is the founder of Open Doors Outdoors, which is an organization that has a mission to take veterans, their families, and young people into the outdoors for reconnection, healthy activity, and healing. So a variety of different programs, hiking, looks like ATV, UTV programs, kayaking, snowshoeing, a lot of time up in the whites. You're operating out of multiple states based out of Connecticut. So Davey, you are a Marine veteran and a dad, husband, endurance athlete, and you're working on this nonprofit here. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, we're happy to have you. And I guess before we start talking about Open Doors Outdoor, can you sort of give a little bit of background on yourself? I started, but can you fill in and give more detail to the listeners?
Yeah, Davey Edwards, South Glassbury, Connecticut, U.S. Marine. I have a social media marketing company in addition to running Open Doors Outdoors. Happily married, 3 amazing kids. I know we all think our kids are great, but I honestly have 3 of the most beautiful children, 2 girls and a boy, 16, 15, and my son is 13. You guys got to meet him earlier. He's a tech wizard. Mountain biking
tech support
fanatic,
guy. He helped us out.
He was fantastic. Born again Christian. Love the outdoors, and I think the thing that I love the most is sharing the outdoors with other people. I can go hike by myself, but would much rather be with other people and sharing what I love to do, and it's just kind of rolled into a beautiful nonprofit.
Have you always been an outdoor person, into hiking and outdoor activity, or did that come later in life for you?
I'm going to say it came later in life, although I had spent some time in the woods hunting and fishing. I had an uncle that was a game warden in Connecticut, and he kind of taught me the ropes in my early teens. Mom got sick when I was 16, died when I was 19, and then the day she passed was actually the day I was supposed to leave for boot camp in the Marine Corps. I ended up leaving exactly 1 month later after her passing, and then the next 6-7 years after that were just a mess. Being a young Marine and kind of figure out what I was doing, and didn't really start straightening out until about 26 years old.
Interesting. Can you, I'm curious from your perspective, because your kids are getting to be that age and my kids are that age, and I've got some nephews and other kids that are sort of at that high school age that are thinking through what their next steps in life are going to be, whether they're going to go into a career directly from high school or they're going to go to college, or they're deciding on maybe looking at military as an option. Can you give your perspective for young listeners that might be thinking about like what their next step in life is? Like for you went through a military career. Do you see that as a good path for young people at this point, or I guess what is your perspective about that?
That's such a great question, and I feel like my career actually started, in 2018 with Open Doors Outdoors, and obviously that's a very late start in life. But everything in my life led up to serving other people. All the hard stuff, all the good stuff, all the sleepless nights, and all the adventures. So what I tell my kids is, there's no rush. There's no rush at all. Don't feel like you have to go to college. Don't feel like you have to do anything. Just, if you're doing something that you love, truly love, like Open Doors Outdoors, I truly love it. And every time I have to make the 4-hour drive up to the Whites, do an 8-hour hike, drive 4 hours home the same day, it's not work at all. I truly love it. And that's what I try to preach to my children, is that just figure out what you love to do and do that thing, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right. And your hiking background and your hiking experience, did it come along with the start of Open Doors Outdoors, or did you get into hiking ahead of time and then use that experience as as part of your nonprofit?
Yeah, I didn't even know when I started in 2018 that there were 48 4,000 footers. I got my feet wet on the Pemi Loop. I've done that 7 times, and had I known there was 48 4,000 footers, I probably would have done the Pemi once and then started tackling the 48 4,000 footers. So I had very little working knowledge of exactly what made the White Mountains so special. I climbed Mount Washington when I was 14 with my church group, and had never done it again, and I've done it multiple times. So I'm gonna say that that Open Doors Outdoors really was a big part of that. What really was the biggest part of it was a divorce I went through about 8 years ago now, and that's really where Open Doors Outdoors was born. And I had 3 small kids. I went through a divorce. I was completely broken, spiritually, mentally, physically. Every part of my life was really it was a wreck, and but I was left with these 3 young children half the time. So I had to figure out what I was going to do with them. And, we started with the library with the free movie passes and the free zoo passes, and trying to keep them busy that way. And the 2 things I had was I had money for gas and snacks. And if I tell everybody the same thing, if you have money for gas and snacks, you can keep your kids moving and active. And hiking was a natural, I just kind of started doing it. So we started off locally hiking. And before you know it, we're on Mount Monadnock, we're on Mount Greylock, we're up Lafayette, where my son climbed Mount Washington when he was 7. Just him and I. We had a minivan that was handed down to us. It was, I think when we got it was 13 or 14 years old, and my car got repossessed. It was as bad as it could possibly be. But I really think it was the time that I spent in the mountains with my children that gave me the idea that there has to be other guys, other dads struggling just to figure out, how to do it. And I had gone through the VA for PTSD. I had a gunnery sergeant that had died in a training exercise, and I was right behind him, and I rolled him over, and he was having a heart attack, and it was a pretty brutal death. And back then there was really no follow up. There was no way to it was kind of just, hey, Edwards, are you okay? And I was a young Marine, and I was like, yeah, of course I'm okay. This isn't combat. I'm not overseas. This is, it's not that big of a deal. And it wasn't until years later that I did get diagnosed with PTSD because of that. But some of the things I learned, I did a 12-week cognitive behavior program through the VA, and fast forward to 7 years later when the divorce was happening, I was able to draw back on some of that training, and I think it proved to be a very very helpful. So it kind of all happened at once. But I tell everybody the same things, that the mountains do the work. When you're in the mountains and you're going through that first mile or 2 climb, and your body's going through that stress, it's a humbling experience, but it's also something that's very freeing when you summit.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Like, even driving up to the trailhead for you've got life, the sort of like hovering over you, but like, you're right. Like the first like half a mile or so, then you're okay. You're in the woods, you got the noise, you're relaxed. It definitely changes it for you. I am curious, can you give a little bit of background? So you went through a tough period in your life, worked through that and came out the other side. What was the sort of impetus for you to start Open Doors Outdoors? So you were touching sort of to hiking on your own with your own kids, but what exactly started the nonprofit for you?
Yeah. So, I live in South Glassbury, Connecticut. It's a little south of Hartford. It's a very affluent town, very wealthy. I live in a kind of a sub part of the town down in the farming community. It's a lot of apple orchards, and we're right on the Connecticut River. And on the outside, my life looked very, very nice. I had a nice car in the driveway. I have a very nice home. I live in a nice neighborhood, and yet I was completely falling apart. And I started to think that there has to be other dads in town that are struggling. And then I started thinking about the veteran piece, the PTSD, and what was the biggest push for the nonprofit being started was, as I'm sharing all my hikes with my family and my kids on social media, people started asking me, hey, where'd you park? How long was the hike? What was it like? Can you show me? Can you call me? Can you take me with you? And eventually I started sharing these hikes with people. And, I reflect back on climbing Mount Greylock with my 3 children, again, 2 girls and a boy. And at any given moment climbing Mount Greylock, one was laughing, one was crying, and one was completely confused. And I realized very quickly that if I could get 3 kids up a mountain, I'm a professional guide. No matter how you shake it, if you can get your kids up a mountain, you are a very good motivator. You have to know how to talk sweet. You have to know how to be stern. You have to know how to make things fun. You got to make sure you bring the snacks. And I found that when I started hiking with adults, they weren't much different. They needed the same kind of motivation, especially if they were lacking experience to do any of these hikes. So it very quickly turned into something that I was sharing, and it goes back to what I said originally, that's my passion. I'd much rather climb with someone than hike alone. I do hike alone. I've done it, and it's something that I don't do often. But when I really need to kind of get regrounded, I do go by myself, and I just did that up Mount Monadnock, and it was great. And I think that the part about sharing those hikes is kind of what made me think I could do this as a nonprofit. And I ended up calling a good buddy of mine. He's my accountant, and he helped me start different businesses. I had a mortgage company that didn't work out. I had a boat company that didn't work out. I had a Sweet Frog frozen yogurt that didn't work out. And I called him up. I'm like, hey, I got an idea for a nonprofit. He's like, I love it. Let's do it. I'm like, but listen, you always support me in these things, and none of them work out. So, I don't want you to just do this to do it. Like, I want to make sure you think it's good. And he's like, nope, I think it's a wonderful idea. And he knew what I was going through at the time. And he's such a good friend. Maybe he just thought it'd be good for me just to keep my sanity. And he was actually our first donor. He donated, I think it was about $190 to incorporate the nonprofit. And he was actually our first donor, and he still does our taxes. And he was a board member for the first 3.5 years of our nonprofit. He just recently stepped down, and now he's our controller.
Wow. And what exactly is the model? So you offer a variety of different events and activities. Can you talk a little bit about what those events are, and then who typically would join?
Yeah. So the way we look at our participants is we treat everyone behind the scenes as if they're broke physically, they're broke emotionally, and they're broke spiritually, financially broke. And we offer transportation, we offer a guided hike and a meal. And we started off in our F-150 truck, so we could take out 3 in addition to the driver, in addition to me. So we would, use the White Mountains as an example. We'd meet up in town. We'd get in a truck. I would drive them up to whatever trailhead we were doing, and we would hike, and then we would stop at a restaurant on the way home, and then I would drive them home. And the reason why we do that is there were times I didn't have money for food, and someone would buy me a meal, and I know what it meant to me. So that's why we provide a meal. The transportation's the same way. I had very little money, and my car wasn't working, and there was definitely times that I couldn't have gone to the mountains. So that's why we offer transportation. Sometimes people want to go by themselves. Sometimes when they first meet us, they're like, "No, I'll meet you at the trailhead." You know, it's a little weird driving people I don't know, and then there's if you look at our T-shirt here, our logo is 4 mountains and 3 lines, and the 3 lines represent the reconnection, healthy activity, and healing, which is our anticipated outcome, and the 4 mountains represent the 4 hikes minimum that we hope you commit to. And we don't take people to the White Mountains right away. We'll start off with a small local hike. We'll work up to Mount Greylock or Mount Monadnock, and then we'll start with an easier 4,000 footer, which could be Mount Pierce, and then the end goal is to get that individual up Mount Washington, whether that includes an overnight or not. Most of the stuff we do, we don't do overnights because the car ride is so important for the connection that we establish with the different individuals. So hiking is our first and foremost. That's our bread and butter. Snowshoeing was added because of the winter hikes we would do. So we incorporated snowshoeing. In Connecticut's a little rough lately. There hasn't been a ton of snow. And then we added a kayak program, which is really just getting off the ground. We got a beautiful grant. We have some foot operated kayaks. One of our veterans is an amputee, is missing his left arm, and so we had an individual like him in mind. So we have the foot operated kayaks, we have normal kayaks, we have lightweight kayaks, and then the UTV program, which was designed in the creation of it was for disabled veterans that couldn't enjoy the outdoors as their able-bodied counterparts, and that's how we technically say it. And to start that program, there was a veteran that came up through our program, did all the 4 hikes. Him and his wife, we were able to outfit them with $1,000 in gear each with a grant that we wrote, and they had 2 autistic children that they gave birth to while on active duty, and 2 beautiful boys. So in preparation for the UTV adventure program, I asked him if he wouldn't mind coming out on a UTV ride with his boys, just so I could figure out the logistics. You know, where are we going to park? Where are we going to drive? How are we going to do this? And one of his sons is both on a spectrum. One is nonverbal. And once the machine started, the nonverbal son calmed right down. And I wasn't surprised because I had no idea what anything really meant in the autistic community. But I was shocked by the fact that he was shocked. So I'm like, is this good? Is this bad? Like, what's going on? He's like, this is amazing. He calmed right down. So we did a UTV ride, and we did a couple with him. And before you know it, we started inviting individuals from the families with autistic kids from the community. So we started offering rides to families and just opened it right up. And it had to be 6 months later. I was doing a little bit of research, and there's something called vibration therapy. And, you know, everyone's amazed at the program. They're like, wow, this is brilliant that you're doing this. And I'm thinking, I'll be honest with you, it was completely by accident. We had no intention of serving autistic children. And it was just this miracle. So now it's this beautiful program. Now we've added another UTV. This one is fully enclosed, has air conditioning, power windows, the whole 9 yards. And there's some kids on the spectrum that if the bugs come in, the open windows, if they get dirt, dust, things like that, are a little bit uncomfortable for them. So we were able to upgrade into a second UTV that we can take out in the heat of summer in the middle of the rain, and it's amazing. It's actually I think I get more out of the blessing that we get to give to these families than the families actually do. I love watching it.
Wow. And then as far as the people that participate, are you working with like Veterans Administration and other organizations to offer your services?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I first started Open Doors Outdoors, I had a 3-year plan. The year 1 was going to be friends and family. I was only going to work with people I knew, and this is just for safety, for my own safety, for the volunteer safety. So year 1 was just people we know, friends and family, veterans. Just get them out hiking, kind of figure out what the program's all about. Year 2 was collaboration, and that's what you're speaking of. So we work with a handful of veteran organizations. We work directly with the VA. We take out veterans from the VA home in a couple different towns. We work with some different veteran organizations that are actually for veterans that are homeless. We take out their veterans, and we have a veterans organization in town here called the Marine Corps League. I get to be the chaplain for that, and we do a lot with them as well. So that is really our bread and butter when it comes to working with individuals where it's a very safe environment for us, because these organizations provide someone from their organization as kind of the middle person between us and their veterans. And then year 3 was we just opened the doors. We just literally just started saying, hey, we're taking we're taking veterans hiking. Reach out to us, let us know. And we use great caution with that. We've only had one experience that was not pleasant with one individual that we were recommended, and but for the hundreds that we've met, we've only had one that was like I said, an uncomfortable experience. But it's been great.
Excellent. And then you're one of the hiking guides, one of the hiking experts. You have other people in the organization that also play that role.
Yeah, we have some amazing veterans that we meet just along the way, whether they're referred in or they heard about us. We were just on the cover of the Hartford Courant, and it's the main paper in Connecticut. We were on Fox 61, local paper. So this has been a very good year for us, just for getting our name out. And then it's the old adage, if you build it, they will come. And I always really felt like that with my whole heart. If it's a good organization that's honest, the right people will come. And we've had some amazing people come in. I tell everybody I walk with giants. I never served overseas, and I never saw combat. And I always thought that possibly that would be a hindrance to working with veterans. But because of the experience I had with losing the gunnery sergeant, I can relate to veterans on the level of trauma, on the level of loss. But I was always a little concerned about, could I actually have an impact on the veterans that have served in combat. And it's been amazing to see who's been reaching out to us. And we have an amazing board. We have 2 Army Rangers, combat vets. We have I call him retired. He did his time. He didn't do a full 20, but he retired as a major. He was a infantry Marine. We have all these the giants that I call them that want to be a part of this, and I'm always humbled that they see Open Doors as a place where they where they have a place, where they have a home.
What would you say to veterans or family members of veterans that might be listening that are hesitant to want to get involved in these? I would think that there's probably some veterans that struggle, that sort of I'm tough enough, I can just work through these things myself. I'm not a joiner. Like, what message would you send to them to sort of convince them to take a look at a program like yours?
Yeah, we there's a couple things about Open Doors Outdoors. Where we are, we're not a therapeutic group. We don't offer therapy. We don't sit around and talk. We don't circle up around the fire and tell our war stories. That's one thing we don't do. It does happen on the trail. It's a beautiful thing when you see the veterans connecting on their own. And the reason why we do that is because we want it to be a safe environment, and not only safe. You're physically safe, but you're emotionally safe. I'm not going to ask you, tell me your story. I want to hear your story. I don't want to hear your story, to be honest with you. I want you to. I want the mountains to do the work. I'm not the guy that's going to solve anyone's problems, but I'm going to facilitate what worked for me, and I'm going to share my story. I'm going to tell you what happened to me, how the VA helped me, how the mountains helped me, how my being a father helped me, and then hopefully it has an impact. But that's the one thing I would say, is that you're just coming to hike and to hang out with some pretty amazing people. The overall feel of Open Doors Outdoors is it's a quiet group. We're not blasting rock and roll on the way up. It's a very quiet atmosphere. And I think I'm 51. I'm definitely done. I bounced for years, and I was an idiot. I did all the silly things, and I got in trouble, and I was able to make the changes, and the organization reflects where I'm at now. And it can be, there's some veteran organizations where you're going to get together and you're going to go and you're going to, you're going to party and you're going to go in that direction. And I think there's a place for that. I think that definitely builds bonds. We're on the opposite spectrum. We're going to let the mountains do the work, and we're going to, we're going to talk, and we're going to talk about whatever. But it's definitely not, you're not there to bear your scars to us.
Got it. How can listeners support your organization?
If there was a listener that wanted to support us, I would say follow us on social media and see what we're doing. And it's nice when people make a donation, but what we really want is we want people to spread the word. We're doing very well. Financially, we have very amazing supporters. So if it was between giving us $40 or taking 5 minutes and thinking about 5 veterans that that could use an experience like this and just get out in the mountains, that's invaluable to us. So that's how you can support us. If you're at a corporation, if you're at a large corporation or business, there's always funds available through large corporations, through hospitals and things like that, or insurance companies that have charitable giving boards. That's a big help for us if there was some way for us to connect to that. But really just maybe just take a couple minutes and think of who needs to go out. And it's funny, when Open Doors first started, I thought for sure that we were gonna just open the doors and everyone's gonna come limping in and sobbing, and they need help, and it's not like that at all. And what we found is that the guys that don't necessarily need a program, there's guys out there that have seen some very difficult things, but they're doing just fine. Those are the guys that can really help us reach the guys that really need it. They have friends that they serve with that are struggling. So sometimes the veterans may think, well, I don't need that. I don't need to go hiking with this group, and I don't need a free meal. You don't. Maybe you don't. But if you come and you get to know us, then maybe there's someone that you can bring with you, and that you can say, hey, there's this group, they go hiking, come with me. I'd really appreciate it. And that's actually where we have the biggest impact is how we reach the guys and girls that really need to be out there.
Well, you're doing great work. 7 PEMI loops. So you must have some stories from that. Have you ever gotten in trouble out there, or any close calls?
I am. It's so funny when you're asking the questions about, would you go down to Pirate Beach and sacrifice your children? My answer is no. I am ultra conservative when it comes to these hikes, and I see pictures of these groups that are out there in the 100-mile-an-hour winds, and it looks awesome, and they have all their safety measures, and they're dialed in, and that's not me. I'm a blue weather guy. I love winter hiking. I love ascending Mount Washington in the winter. But it's going to be a bluebird day, and it's going to be it's just the way it is. So I've never had an issue on the PEMI except for one time, and it was when I first started doing it. And I had a good buddy of mine, and I brought my wife, and I'm embarrassed to even tell the story, but I've come leaps and bounds since then. My wife, who is an experienced Iron woman, she's done Kona, she's a triathlete coach, she's an incredible athlete, beautiful person, and I made the mistake of taking her on the PEMI without really filtering her skills. And long story short is we're coming down off a flume. It's pitch dark. It's starting to have a cold rain. No headlamps. We had 3 phones. 2 of them were dead. And we walked the 4 miles past the stairs down to the Wilderness Trail with 1 cell phone light. And had we not had that 1 cell phone light, we would have been in trouble. And that one hike changed everything for me. Now I carry 2 headlamps. Even if I'm doing a day hike, I make sure that there's any possible thing that I think could go wrong. And I think that one experience scarred me in a very good way to be ultra conservative in everything that we do. So that we just did the Pemion. We did it last Saturday, and we left at 10 o'clock at night, and we had more than enough of everything that we needed. And it was myself and a prior service Army Ranger, and we were overstocked with safety. But that one experience was the worst experience that I had in the mountains, and also the one that changed me for the better. And it rolls over into the way we approach hikes with Open Doors.
Got it. Yeah, I would imagine that coming down Ossia with just one cell phone light would be that would be something that would change your perspective on safety.
Yeah, it was scary, and I was scared. I was scared. I mean, I was afraid. It's. Yeah. But I know that God had it all worked out, and it'll never happen again. And but I get to pass that information on to anyone we take out. And the Pemi's no joke. I mean, it's such a butt kicker, and it's beautiful and miserable. And I think most of the hike I'm miserable on that hike, and until I get to dip in the river after the bridge. And but it's definitely made me a different person.
Excellent. Stomp. Any other questions?
Too many. Much too many. So yeah, I'm just going to sit back and savor this one. I really appreciate your story, and especially the hard times and the low times that you went through. I have gone through many of those myself, and your faith and everything else. So I just appreciate the story, and I just wish you the best and blessings, and keep on fighting and moving forward. Do you have any anticipation as to where it's going? Will this go nationally or expansion?
Yeah, so we have a branch in Colorado. We have a branch in Washington State. But I think that it's I think we're just really focusing on New England, and then whatever comes from that. I thought originally that we really had to be national to have the impact, but it's such a neat. New England is really a neat area, and we've as an organization we've done the Grand Canyon, we've done Mount Whitney, we've gone to the base camp of Rainier. So I think the real focus, instead of pushing any more national opportunities, I think that we're gonna really focus on 2 local hikes out west, and that's it's a little more affordable. And we can connect with organizations out in that area to kind of increase our impact, and that's something we've just been talking about in the last month or so. But I think that's the big thing is I love it out west. My son loves it, and we have some very good friends in Arizona that spend a lot of time in the Grand Canyon area, Sedona. So I think that's where I see it going. But that's it, and just really just turning up the volume on the hikes right now that we have.
Davey Edwards, Open Doors Outdoors, impressive. So we're gonna definitely include all the links to your organization so that the listeners can check it out, and if they want to participate, they can get in touch with you. We'll include all that info, and thanks for joining us. Definitely hang out. You probably have some more input to give us. We're going to talk with Reklis Steve about what he's been up to. He's been doing some backpacking and some hiking, and then we'll do some recent search and rescue news. So hang out, and thanks again. It's been great talking to you.
I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's been great.
Awesome. Moving on to our next segment here, we want to catch up with Reklis Steven. He has been out hiking. He's been making beer. He's been doing his own podcast at Fantasy Pants. So, Steven, what's new with you? Are there any updates in Reklis with new beers that you've been making?
Yeah, actually, tomorrow we're doing something really cool. We're going to do a little collab with one of our hop suppliers. A guy from Willamette Valley is what they're called. So the idea behind this beer is that we're going to make it entirely with what's called advanced hop products. Hops as you know, are just a little like flour. For brewing, they process it down to this little pellet. It kind of looks like rabbit food. Then they figured out a way to process it even further. And now they're processing it into these like oils. And there's a whole bunch of different companies on the market that are all selling these oils. And this guy, Paul, from Willamette Valley, he's like a pro, really knows his stuff as far as hops go. So we've been utilizing some of these advanced hop products, but this beer that we're brewing tomorrow, it's going to be part of our Rec series. We're going to call it Rec 7. So in probably about 2 or 3 weeks from recording is when it's going to be released. And we're brewing that tomorrow. It's going to be all advanced hop products, and it's pretty exciting for us.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, so that enables us to be able to put more hop flavor and aroma into a beer without losing a bunch to all the vegetable matter. So it makes it more efficient and tastier.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. When you're working on like a weekly basis, like is it the, like when you start a new batch, is that like considered like the best part of the week, or is it more enjoyable to like finish a batch and can it up, or what how does it work in a brewery? What's the bad part and what's the fun part?
Well, we have enough tanks that there's always a beer somewhere in the process, because we usually brew, I would say, an average of 3 times a week. Sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 2. And then we're, packaging beers just as frequently. And then there's a huge range of beer all in between. So it's really cool to be able to come in and see the birth of a beer and the packaging of a beer. The hardest part or the worst part, I don't know, I guess is when you get dirty, when something goes wrong, when a hose springs a leak, or
an entire batch goes. Remember that story you told us? One of your batches.
Yes, we've had some leaks and some hop volcanoes and things like that. I mean, it just can be dirty and sweaty and wet. In this recent heat wave that we've had, it's not like I work in an air conditioned building. There's an overhead fan and a couple of windows, and you're standing next to big giant pots of boiling wort. So the heat is probably the worst part, the hardest part. But no, it's great that you can constantly come in and see the fruit of your labor. It's not like, if you're homebrewing, Stomp, like when you made your pale ale, after you brewed it, you had to wait the whole time until it was done.
It was brutal.
Yeah.
Waiting.
Yeah. Waiting's hard, but when you've got so many going at the same time, there's
awesome.
Always a little bit of a treat.
So cool.
Yeah.
And then Reklis, like last time I was there, I went for the Alzheimer's Association, like wrap up party or party. And we
missed you.
Main building was busy. And then the back building was like so crazy. Like the business must be booming at this point.
Yeah, I mean, they've got 2 buildings and like you said, especially on a busy weekend when there's an event going on, which I am sorry I missed. I think that weekend I was out in Vermont.
Yeah, I'm taking it personal. I don't think you like my DJing.
No, okay. That's totally not true. But yes, I bigly missed out on that one. But yeah, the Pint House and the main brew pub, they're crazy all summer long, pretty much.
So cool.
Yeah.
By the way, Xylo is he's hanging with the boys still.
Sorry, Stomp, I stepped on you.
Xylo is still hanging here. Oh, it's okay. No, Xylo is like, I just got a text from Mrs. Stomp. She's like, I haven't seen Xylo all night. Do you know where he is? So I sent her a picture of Xylo sprawled out on Steve's lap. So he's like, he's just hanging with the boys.
Nice. So, Steve, are you doing the New England 4,000 footers? Is that what's going on with Vermont and Maine?
No, I had no interest in doing the New England 67, but my buddy Joni is, and I've been going along. So now I'm almost done. I've got
that's cool.
2 more in Maine, Mansfield and Killington, and just a small handful. In Vermont, Mansfield and Killington, and just a small handful in Maine. So kind of accidentally stumbled into completing the New England 67. I'm not rushing it. I don't think it'll happen this year. I really enjoy hiking locally. I love living in the mountains because I can hike here. But I'm sure it'll happen next year.
Those main peaks that you went on, Abraham, Spalding, the Crockers, Reddington, which one was the highlight from your perspective?
Abraham was great because it's a treeless summit. I love being in the Alpine. So that was the highlight. It was a pretty tough climb. Especially that's the point where you have the most food and whatnot. There were really no low points, I don't think. I enjoyed them all. Reddington was a quote unquote bushwhack. Stomp, I don't know what you think, but I think my definition of a bushwhack is if you have to do your own orienteering. If you can do a bushwhack or a hike without pulling up a map or a compass, I'd just call it herd path.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's pushing it for me. I mean, with a compass?
Well, I don't know about specifically, but I mean,
for me, it's like without a GPS, without electronics.
Right, exactly.
Oh yeah, for sure.
If you can just walk and follow the whole path.
Absolutely.
I think it's a stretch to call that a bushwhack.
Absolutely. Yeah, no question.
But Reddington, which was like that, was gorgeous. Beautiful forest. Like I said, no low points on the whole trip.
Yeah. Wow.
And Stephen, you host your own podcast, Fantasy Pants, a D&D role-playing show. How is that going?
Yes, I do. I'm one of three, myself, my buddy David, and Jeremy. We all actually work at Reklis together, fell into the D&D hobby together at various points, and now weekly we sit down and play and release it to the world, to whoever's silly enough to want to listen to us be silly. And it's going great. We're having a lot of fun. Growth is slow and steady. We're building a really great little community around us. Lots of other podcasters, dice makers, blacksmiths, cartographers. It's a really creative community, and having a lot of fun meeting people and creating. I don't know. Art's not the right word, but creating fun.
Creating experiences and memories.
Yes.
And laughs.
Oh, nice. Well, Stomp, I had a moment where I went down like a little rabbit hole about Dungeons and Dragons, and there's this like drama that's been going on about open game licensing. Are you familiar with that, Steve?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was towards the beginning of the year, wasn't it? I think it was towards the beginning of the year. So essentially, like, I think that there was a lot of these companies that were like pushing out blockchain NFTs and otherwise profiting on Dungeons and Dragons in ways that I think weren't initially envisioned when the original licensing went out. So for the listeners to understand this, essentially there's this organization called Wizards of the Coast that owns Dungeons and Dragons. They allow people basically to use Dungeons and Dragons freely, pretty much with like limited restrictions, and the way that it's done is over this open game licensing agreement. And what Wizards of the Coast tried to do was essentially change the open game license to basically require anybody that was monetizing their pursuits with Dungeons and Dragons to pay them a royalty. They had to reset basically like all the old licensing agreements went out the door, and a lot of it had to do with them stopping companies from doing NFTs and this blockchain stuff that was going on back last year. But the nerds basically all just went up in arms about the whole thing and pushed back pretty significantly. And I think eventually they just decided to like run away and say, we're canceling it. So in case you guys do blow up and you make a lot of money in that podcast, like you won't have to pay any royalties, which is good. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was a pretty big breach of trust for the community. There were basically things in there that said like, just all these little caveats and legal speech that was like, oh yeah, if we wanted to, we could just come and just take everything you own, sort of thing. And royalties and all sorts of things like that. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I'm glad that you guys dodged that bullet.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever have to worry about it, but it is nice to know that if enough little people speak up, you can get the big corporation to back down.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
No question. Welch gear. Do you have a sweat problem? Sweat can be extremely uncomfortable on the trails. Plus, sweat is a serious risk factor. As your clothes get wet, your core temperature can dramatically fluctuate. This can result in hypothermia, heat exhaustion, and dehydration. We've got good news at SLASR for you. There's a piece of gear that solves the sweat problem. Welch's ultralight ventilation backpack frame. The frame is a backpack accessory that easily installs in your favorite pack, size 15 liters to 65 liters, and creates a ventilating airflow gap between you and your pack. It's also ultralight, weighing less than a pair of socks at just over 3 ounces. Whether you're hiking in hot or cold temps, the ultralight ventilation backpack frame is a real game changer when it comes to airflow and ventilation. Visit VelchlusGear.com to order an ultralight ventilation frame today. Use promo code SLASHER to enjoy a $5 discount. Plus, you let them know that Mike and Stomp sent you.
We can get into the recent search and rescue news. It's starting to pick up quite a bit. And we'll start with one that occurred on June 29th. This was a response to an injured hiker that was located about 4 miles up Gale River Trail. So they were probably coming down from, I guess, Gale Head Hut. 18-year-old from Gainesville, Florida, was hiking with a family member on June 28th when he suffered a lower leg injury. The pair was assisted by crew from the AMC to the Gale Head Hut, where they spent the evening hoping they'd be able to descend the following day. On June 29th, even with assistance from an Appalachian Mountain crew member, the pair only made it like about 0.4 of a mile in several hours, and the decision was made to begin a 20-person carry-out rescue with volunteers from the Pemmy Valley Search and Rescue Team, along with conservation officers from New Hampshire Fish and Game. So that's a long trip down Gale River Trailhead.
Sure is.
So they loaded him into a rescue litter. I guess it's not horrible, though, because that's, if you are going to get rescued, like, that's not a horrible trail to carry somebody out on a litter compared to some of the other trails, I guess.
It's long miles, but it's a pretty mild trail.
Yeah, my memory of that is from the winter and the crossing over of the river back and forth towards the end.
Sure, yeah.
That
water's a little different.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a long one. Long and hot, sweaty weather.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those areas too, like Garfield, where you can get an ATV out about 1.5 miles, 2 miles in to pick people up. So it was not a super long carry out. It was about 2 miles, and then they were able to get him to the ATV, which was good. So all's well that ends well. There's a couple of these from people that are like not from the New England area, so maybe that's a pattern. I don't really know. So Gale Head Hut rescue. The next one here is on the Belknaps. So this happened on June 28th. Fish and Game notified of an injured hiker on the Old Piper Trail on Piper Mountain. Guilford Fire and Rescue, Lakes Region SAR team, and conservation officers responded to the scene. About a half a mile in, it was a female hiker local to New Hampshire, lower leg injury, slipped on wet rocks as she traversed the trail. So rescue crews had to carry her off the mountain. Call came in at 1:15, and they were off the mountain at 2:45. So, good job, Lakes Region.
Yeah, not too bad. Fast turnaround.
Nope. Yep. And then moving on to July 3rd, Stomp, we've got a injured hiker that was carried down Webster Jackson Trail. So this was a Massachusetts woman, 32-year-old from Somerville, Mass., was coming down Webster Jackson Trail after trying to complete a day loop hike from the Highland Center in Crawford Notch. I don't really know what that means. I'm assuming that means like they were going to go over to Mizpah and down that way, but I don't really know. But she slipped on a wet rock section of the trail and injured her leg. It doesn't say. Oh, here we go. So she was about 2 miles up from the Webster Jackson trailhead. So that's probably close to like where the trail split is. And the call came in at 5:30 on July 3rd. They were able to get to her around 8:20. So they treated her on the trail, carried her down, and then she was out by 11:30 that night. So that was a long time for them to get to her. Yeah. Considering where she was, but it's also July 3rd, so I think a lot of people were probably out partying and drinking. So, this next one here, sad story. We had a hiker fatality that happened on July 2nd. This happened on Black Cap. So this is a 59-year-old hiker that had a medical emergency near the summit of Black Cap. So for people that aren't familiar with this, Black Cap is a trailhead that is on the top of Hurricane Mountain Road, pretty easily reached by either North Conway, or you can come over from the Freiburg side as well in Maine. So this gentleman was with family, unfortunately had a medical emergency, and the family attempted life-saving measures, but unfortunately he passed away. So North Conway Fire and Rescue and Action Ambulance responded. The rescue team located the group about a mile up from the trailhead. So this trailhead, it's probably about 1.5 miles to the summit. So he was probably pretty close to the summit of Black Cap. The call came in at 7 p.m. and they reached him at 9:30, and unfortunately, not a lot of information. The man's name hasn't been released or anything like that, but the thoughts and prayers definitely go out to the family. It's something we talk about quite a bit here, is that sometimes these medical emergencies happen and there's not a lot that can be done.
Busy, huh?
Yeah, crazy busy. So
many.
We'll do 1 or 2 more here, Stomp, and then we'll save the rest for next week. But this is July 5th. A report of an injured hiker came in from Beaver Brook Trailhead. So 47-year-old woman, local from New Hampshire, had suffered a lower leg injury coming down from Mount Moosilauke. She was 2.2 miles from the trailhead, unable to continue without assistance. Pemi Valley Search and Rescue conservation officers had reached her by 5:15. So call came in at 2:45. They get there by 5:15. They were able to stabilize her and bring her down 2.2 miles. That must have been brutal. For people that aren't familiar, Beaver Brook Trail is brutal. It's got like stairs hammered into the rocks. It's got rungs and ladders that are rung in there. So it's got to be insane to bring somebody down that. And to add to it, it was super rainy out and not a good day to be out there.
Right. Yeah. Just wet conditions.
Have you guys ever done a rescue on Beaver Brook, Stomp?
Yeah, probably like 3 or 4 times over the last 2 years. Oftentimes late at night.
Yeah, it's a tough area there. So good job for the rescue team. And then I think, Stomp, we will hold off on the rest of these. There's a couple more that are newer, Moriah, Falling Waters, and Welch Dickey, but we'll push those to next week's episode and call this a wrap because we're getting up on 2 hours at this point.
Good show. Welcome back. Nice job.
Yeah, welcome back. Davey, thank you for joining us. And Steve, thanks for joining us. What do you think, Davey? Your first podcast, did you like it?
Yeah, you guys are awesome. It's I really enjoy the just the conversation. It was very relaxing, and one thing I will say is I have had the opportunity to eat at Reklis a couple times, and it was very good food. I think maybe you guys should talk a little bit more about the food as well, because it's we had very good experiences there after our hike. So I do appreciate that.
Yeah, you know what?
Happy to hear it, man.
You know what's unbelievable there, Davey, is if you haven't had this is my suggestion, is they have something that it's a combination that should exist, but it doesn't exist anywhere else that I can't. They make the grilled cheese sandwich, and I think they use mozzarella cheese, and it has the marinara sauce. So it's grilled cheese, but it's got the marinara sauce. That's such a great combination, but I've never seen that anywhere else but at Reklis.
I will definitely try it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. So let's end the show on that tasty note.
Yum.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you want to learn more about the topics covered in today's show, please check out the show notes and safety information at SLASRPodcast.com. That's SLASRPodcast.com. You can also follow the show on Facebook and Instagram. We hope you'll join us next week for another great show. Until then, on behalf of Mike and Stomp, get out there and crush some mega peaks.
Now covered in scratches, blisters, and bug bites, Chris Staff wanted to complete his most challenging day hike ever.
Fish and Game officers say the hiker from Florida activated an emergency beacon yesterday morning. He was hiking along the Appalachian Trail when the weather started to get worse. Officials say the snow was piled up to 3 feet in some spots, and there was a wind chill of -1 degree.
And there's 3 words that describe this race. Do we all know what they are?
Lieutenant James Nealon, New Hampshire Fish and Game. Lieutenant, thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the most common mistakes you see people make when they're heading out on the trails to hike here in New Hampshire?
It seems to me the most common is being unprepared. And I think if they just simply visited hikesafe.com and got a list of the 10 essential items and had those in their packs, they probably would have no need to ever call us at all.